How's it going, everyone? Welcome to the April 21st weekly trade analysis. So I'm going to go over the trades that I took from the 21st all the way to the 25th. I believe that's right. So I took 6 trades this week. I had 2 swings. I had 4 day trades. Total profit of $65.50. So small profit, but a profit nonetheless. That brings my weekly streak of green weeks up to 4, which is nice. That's a new record. On my swings, I had 1 win and I had 1 scratch. On my day trades, I had 1 win, 1 scratch. 1 win, 1 loss, and 2 scratches this week. So let's start with the swings because they will get a little bit, kind of make a little bit more sense, or they're a little bit easier to talk through first. I'm going to go over the market this week. So we'll start on the 21st. Over here, we had a pretty bullish week this week where SPY did form a higher low versus that drop on the 7th and has been climbing up higher to test the top of this long green candle and this resistance into the gap. So we have some resistance here at the 148-ish level. We're also hitting some resistance here. There's a If I look at this bottom chart, I know it's a little messy, but maybe I'll hide that for now. But we have a high minus trend line coming down right over here. That's coming into play, and we have the 50 SMA kind of above. That's downward sloping, 562. That's probably going to come down to like 558 by the time the market gets there, or if it gets there. We also have this upward sloping trend line that we're now seeing over here. So we have a situation where the long-term D1 chart is bearish, right? We got this big move, big 20% plus drop in a matter of 6-ish weeks. And then we are recovering some of that drop over here with this long green candle that added some bullish price action, and then a period of chop where we have buyers and sellers fighting it out. And we had lots of pending news with economic data, with tariff announcements, and with major earnings coming out this month. That's some of the context. So given that scenario, when the short-term trend is bullish, long-term trend is bearish, or when they are opposing, that's when you have to be more cautious, because I view this as a pullback in a longer-term trend. So the way you can take advantage of it is day trading either side and keeping your trade duration short. Pete's been recommending some premium selling strategies, so some short puts over here, potentially some put credit spreads once the IVs come in a little bit and those bid-ask spreads start to narrow. If you have very high option liquidity stocks, then you could enter in those spreads a little bit easier. One consideration on bullish put spreads is that you want to be able to leg out easy if you need to. That it's going to add to your ability to avoid taking a max loss if that unfolds. So that is kind of the strategies over here. But after taking some big gains in the beginning of April, a lot of traders have been relatively passive, choppy trading, and hit and run trading. That's kind of been the scenarios we've been working with. So let's start. I'm going to start with actually the D1 chart here for the swings. Okay, so first swing I took was Netflix, and I took this on the 21st here. So this is after earnings. I think Dave took this trade, so that's how it got on my radar. I took the 935, 930 put credit spread expiring on this Friday, the 2nd, for $1.05. So a little bit better than you want at least $1 credit for a $5 spread here. So a little bit better than that. I had a chance to get it for maybe $1.10, $1.15, but I got a little bit greedy. In any case, took it over here and pretty short expiration, and figured, this is a pretty nice swing where I can distance myself with the price action. Netflix is a strong stock. It's above all its SMAs and its past earnings. So I can kind of, I have some time for this to let it kind of digest over here. So next day we got a really big bump up in Netflix, and it tested this high over here. So I took gains actually the next day, just because I had pretty good profits. It was like I exited at 30 cents. So I took 75 cents profit with a max profit of 105. So that's pretty nice gain in a single day on a PCS. And if I look at Netflix over here, you can see here's the big jump and then a pull back to VWAP. And then on this bounce over here is when I exited the position because it was hitting resistance at the at that high over there. And given, again, the choppy nature of the market, if I can get almost a majority of those gains on Netflix in a single day, I'm going to take that. So that was the win on Netflix. I took another trade on the 21st, which was FIS. And I took this originally as a swing long. So I took it, I think it broke through somewhere over here, FIS, but I liked how it kind of established this compression low. It broke into the earnings gap and through this horizontal support, and it was above the 50. It didn't have a ton of room to the 200, but I figured it could be a pretty nice overnight swing. So I was not really looking to get much more other than a move to the 200-day SMA. And so I believe I took it right around here. I got in on FIS around 110, where it broke the high of the day compression. And when was this? Was this also the 21st? This was the 22nd. And I'm going to go to SPY on the 22nd here. All right. So here's SPY on the 22nd. Market is pulling back a little bit here, and FIS is compressing. It made a new high of the day. So I took the May 2nd 76 puts for 350. And this is an overnight swing. See in the M5 here, we broke through the 100-day, tested it, and we were grinding up higher. And if you also look at what it was doing when the market was selling off over here, FIS one of the few stocks that broke up, and it held the open throughout that sell-off, and it pretty much held the 100-day SMA. So there was some really nice price action on there. So I took it for 350. It dipped, and then it rallied a little bit higher. And SPY was rallying, but then it started to stall out a little bit here. And then I decided, you know what, man, maybe I don't really want to take FIS if it's starting to lose its relative strength. I wanted to see it kind of recapture its high of the day a little bit faster. So I ended up scratching out of the trade. I took gains at 357, so that was a tiny little win, but basically a scratch for me. Anything that's plus or minus $30 is about a scratch. So scratched out of that one. Obviously, it had gapped. Market had a nice gap up the next day, and I think I could have exited for, I don't know, close to like 450 or something like that, or maybe something like 5 on the gap up and the breakthrough. But you know, I'm not really like second guessing myself too much in this kind of environment. That's how you can start to lose confidence. I've been playing it a little bit passive, which you'll see also in the day trades, and you know, didn't want to kind of press it more than I had to in this trade. So, you know, still not sure if my exit was the best or not, but I'm not going to, again, zoom in too much on one trade. I am, you know, just going to probably evaluate the swings that I've had to. I think this is probably one of the few swings I've taken Netflix. So this and Netflix are the only swings I've really taken this month, and this swing ended up being a day trade. And it's really primarily because we had this little bit of a deeper dip, and I figured that we could get some move to the downside, and, you know, predicted that wrong. So that was FIS, scratch on that one. So let's go to the 22nd here, and take the first trade here, which was KMI. So I took this day trade short at, I believe I took it at 1255. So just pulling it up on my side here. All right. So here's KMI. Yep, on April 21st. So this was the setup on the D1. It was one of the weaker stocks, especially when the market was gapping up and was pretty much a gap and go up. KMI was a small gap up and started to sell off for most of the day. You notice I have this line drawn over here because there is a little bit of support, a couple of places of support that is coming into play for the stock, as well as the 200. So on an intraday basis, it may, depending on the volume, it may not have the power to blast through that support. You want to kind of wait and see. All right, so here's KMI, and what I love about this is nice long red candle. So gap down, compression, break the compression, and then some really nice steady selling while the market was rallying. So just really gaining relative weakness a whole bunch. Now at this point here, I took it at 12, the close of this 1250 candle. If you notice what SPY did over here, SPY is starting to, oops, hold on, I got the wrong day on here, my bad. So SPY bearish trend day, and I was waiting for a little bit of a bounce, which I got. So ignore the prior commentary here. The stock really strong, steady selling, and very heavy volume. We got this little bounce here, and then when SPY started to break down at 1250, this is when I entered the day trade. So what I liked is we got a bounce, and then we broke through the bottom part of this downward sloping trend line. This is a gap and go bearish trend day, so I wasn't super eager. I wasn't looking to get crazy, but I got a pretty good stock, and this is the setup that I had. So, right, market bouncing, stock couldn't get off the deck, and broke through compression lower. So I took it, day trade short, 500 shares at 25.60, and we got a little bit of a move lower, but we didn't really get that much follow through, and I ended up scratching the trade at 130. And here's why. So I got this move down here on SPY. I also took a SPY short over here at 105, which was an okay entry, not the best entry. I think the better entry was probably here at 511. But we got an okay entry. Market is just kind of stalling here. And if you look at this long red candle at the new low of the day, I like this candle, and I didn't mind a little bit of compression here as it tried to pull back to that 8 EMA. But after it tapped that level and it started to kind of stall out here, I was not as bearish as I was before. I also saw that this stock was starting to lose its relative strength over here, not really rallying with the market. So ended up scratching the trade at 25.60 on the stock, and ended up scratching my day trade on SPY here. I took this day trade short, 30 shares at 510.24. So it was I think it was a decent entry, but on these little, I like these low of the day breaks, but only on a compression break. On a pullback, I'd like to get it somewhere over here when it starts to break through that downward sloping trend line. And it was also a gap and go kind of day, right? So I knew that, all right, well, I mean, usually this gap and go day gets exhausted by the first, 90 minutes. So somewhere over here is usually when it gets exhausted, but we actually got a nice lower chunk of the move. And you notice that, all right, we did get a little bit more follow through here, but these candles are tiny body candles, and this is pretty common at the end of a big move. So all this told me that we're close to the end of the move. I don't know how much downside is remaining on both of these stocks, so I'm going to scratch out of the trade and get to the sidelines and see what happens. So my market prediction ended up being right. Now for SPY, this bounce took a lot longer to materialize. For KMI, I did have one more leg lower. It hit this support, which I drew over here at 25.42, which was this gap support on the D1 chart. And then you can see we got a pretty strong bounce from that support. And it ended up going well past my entry. So I was pretty, overall pretty happy with the process. Obviously, it's like, hey, look, I could have made a little bit more money, but I think I picked a good stock. I entered well. I did give it a little bit of time, and I had a pretty short time for this trade to start to produce. And when SPY didn't start to produce, and when this trade didn't really produce that much, it told me to maybe get out of the sidelines and, get out of the trade, get back on the sidelines, and reevaluate the conditions. So, maybe I had a small window to make profits. I had maybe another 30-minute window to take gains on this guy. Same thing with SPY over here. I had maybe another 30-minute window to take gains, and then after that, it's kind of scratch out of the trade, take a small win, and then you want to get out of the way. So those are those two trades, 2 scratches on that. Did not take any trades on the 22nd. I talked about KMI, so even though it was technically a day trade, I originally planned it as a swing, which is why I categorized it as a swing. On the 23rd, I did take a short on SPY. So I did day trade short. I took 30 shares short at 11.41. So I took it right here. I got filled at 539.50. So I got filled kind of right at the 8 EMA, which was close to that low of the day. And then I got some immediate follow through. I also took this, by the way. I think I took it and then I had to go to the doctor's. So I was not completely at my screen. I was trading from my phone in the doctor's office, which is not advisable, but I kind of had the game plan in my head pretty clearly, so I actually felt comfortable doing this. But we had a gap up. We stalled at the high of the day. Over here, we got some consecutive red-bodied candles, and I figured we had a decent chance to fill in this gap overnight or at least test the prior day high. So got filled over here. We got some nice follow-through on this candle, and then we got this nice green candle over here on SPY. So I saw that, and not too worried. I want to see that kind of get smacked down. When it didn't get smacked down, that's kind of my warning sign. We got a bounce, and here was actually my chance to exit the trade. Once I saw this bounce, I was trying to get out of the trade at like 535.50, and you can see I just missed my entry. Here's 535.79, so I missed it by like maybe 30 cents, and I ended up exiting this trade at 538.30. So I took about $1.20 profit on this stock, but I was trying to bid for like a $4 gain. So I'll still take a win. Small win is still a small win. But I kind of missed my ideal exit here. I realized too that we had this little pivot low on 11.50, so I figured I should probably, something like this, maybe get out somewhere closer over to here on that pivot low. Some minor nitpicking details here, but I'm glad I entered well. And when it started to stall, I think there's probably another short that's set up over here at 11.30. Especially when you get that double bottom, right? The double top, sorry, and we start to break down over here. This is a pretty nice time to go short. And this is actually when I take a short on Amazon. So I liked here, this market had bounced and it sort of stalled out over here. I think sellers have some weak control and we have a decent chance of testing the low of the day. That's kind of my thinking over here. I'm going to pull up the Amazon chart. Now Amazon was not your typical short. Let's see over here. It had a pretty big gap up. But you can see on the daily chart, right, it retraced a lot more of its candle relative to the SPY daily chart. If you just look at over here, SPY held most of the halfway point of this candle. You can see Amazon kind of erased most of this candle and it wasn't able to get back up over here. Did have a nice little bounce overnight. But to me, the daily chart is relatively weak compared to SPY, especially as a Mag 7 stock, which is a little bit more correlated. So I'm going to go back to this day. Now, here's what I saw on Amazon, right? Market bouncing, Amazon not really bouncing. So I took this short here at 135. Right, this stock is not really doing much. Had a little bit of relative strength and then kind of stalled over here. So that's what I liked about this stock. And day trade short 75 shares at 181.60. And then I think I got out of the position at 182.30 because it started to move back up and SPY was starting to drift lower. So I had a pretty quick bailout for that. I took a 60 cents loss on that. So that was my one small loss for the week. I think in hindsight, if I look at how this move has set up slowly, I think I just entered this a little bit too late. If I just draw my usual setup here, right, you can see how, okay, well, look, we still are in this mild, very, very mildly bullish channel. And then when that starts to break, right, okay, when it starts to break over here, that's when I can actually take my short. Now I get a slightly worse price, but I don't have to hold through all that heat. So that's kind of the trade-off that I make. As long as this high of the day, see this resistance over here, as long as that holds at 82.50, then you can stay confident in the trade. And the mistake I made was I just didn't let that hold through because I didn't want to be red for the week. That's kind of why. So that's why I bailed out of the trade. And I was kind of trading my results here. You can see it when the market buys. The market slowly leaked lower. This is a pretty weak move, so you don't have a lot of conviction in this move. And I'd probably start to take gains here at 320, 325, because we're approaching the low of the day. And given the strength, given the weakness of this move, how we're approaching it, it's not like many consecutive red candles. Lots of tiny mixed candles. Pretty unlikely we're going to break it. So I think another short here at 3 is a better short. Now, at this point, Amazon is relatively flat to the market, but at least it's a better technical short in the M5, and then we get a nice amount of follow-through on the stock. And you can probably take, like, let's say maybe $1 on this, right? So when I see this long tail over here, you know, you take it at like 121 or maybe 180, 150 if you get a nice little dip. And then you can take gains here at 180.50. So there's a nice dollar in here. But I think I had a pretty good sync with the market for the most part. I just didn't trust my game plan. I didn't have as much conviction in the market move and the stock move in terms of sticking to this level. And that's why I took the loss on a stock where I don't think I really should have taken the loss. So I just didn't have as much conviction as I normally did. And when I do the autopsy of why, I would say, I had a good entry. I liked my pick at the time, and then I lost conviction pretty quickly in my pick when it didn't produce. So that looked like it was the reason. So those were my couple of trades. Pretty light week. I've not been taking a lot of trades these past 2 weeks. Just been sticking with some day trades. I've been trying just to get, 1 or 2 nice wins. The good thing is I've been keeping my streak alive. So in terms of hitting my technical boxes, right, of getting a stock that is synced with the market, that is a good entry on the stock. I'm keeping that streak alive of 16. So I'm just trying to keep that streak going as much as I can. And so far that seems to be working in terms of, generating profits. I'm not at my ideal level that I was in terms of the goal for goal for 2025, which was to double my account. I'm actually making about 2% a week, and right now I'm not making that. But these are some choppy conditions. So as long as I'm making money week in, week out, that's my main goal for this second quarter of 2025. And as long as I'm trying to hit a 75% win rate on all of my trades combined, then I know I'm in good shape. So those are really the two big metrics I'm going to track here again. So I think I have this PowerPoint somewhere here. But financial goal is to win every week, be green every week. Technical goal is a 75% win rate for all of my trades combined. And then the daily focus is those technical points, right? Really nailing the entries on the syncing up with the market and nailing those entries in the stock and not compromising on both of those. And that narrows it down for me, 1 or 2 trades a day, no more than 2 trades. That's when I operate at my best and I feel like I'm in control versus, kind of compromising and chasing things all over the place. Thanks for watching, everyone. I will post the link to the trades that I've taken in the description, as I always do. And trade well this week. Watch out for all the earnings announcements. I think a window will be setting up soon for some swing shorts. And on those swing shorts, I think that's a good chance to make some nice gains on my account. If I can take like a 5% gain or something like that on the account, I will be very happy on that next leg lower. So thanks for watching, everyone, and I will catch you all in the next video.